Atomic Habits by James Clear. Detailed summary. Introduction. The power of tiny changes. James Clear begins his book with a revolutionary insight. Small habits, repeated consistently, create remarkable results. The term atomic reflects both smallness and power. Like atoms, the tiniest particles that form everything, small habits, when compounded, shape the destiny of our lives. Every thought, every action, every routine, no matter how insignificant, carries the potential for transformation when repeated. Clear's central principle is not about sudden change or giant goals, but about the cumulative power of continuous improvement. The 1% philosophy. If you improve by just 1% each day, the effect multiplies and over time it becomes extraordinary. Similarly, a 1% decline every day leads to slow decay. He summarizes this through a simple truth: habits are the compound interest of self improvement. Thus, just as money multiplies through interest, small repeated behaviors compound into strong identities and destinies. The core idea: you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. According to Clear, goals are about results, but systems are about the processes that lead to those results. People often focus on goals: losing weight, writing a book, winning a medal, but goals themselves do not determine success. The system behind them does. For example, two people can have the same goal, yet one succeeds and the other fails. The difference lies not in their desire, but in their daily habits, the invisible systems that run their lives. This shifts the entire paradigm of success. Forget about motivation, forget about the final outcome. Focus on designing better systems because systems shape behavior and behavior builds destiny. Thus, the secret to transformation is not one grand act, but the silent architecture of daily discipline. The four laws of behavior change. James Clear organizes his philosophy into a framework of four laws, representing the invisible process by which habits are formed and sustained. They correspond to four stages of any habit: cue, craving, response, and reward. Each stage governs a fundamental law of habit formation. Cue, make it obvious. Craving, make it attractive. Response, make it easy. Reward, make it satisfying. He also describes the inverse laws for breaking bad habits: make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, make it unsatisfying. These laws together form the philosophical mechanism of human behavior, the cycle through which the brain learns patterns of action and reaction. Let's explore each law deeply, conceptually, not practically. Law 1: make it obvious. Cue. Habits begin with cues, the subtle signals that trigger a behavior. These cues could be visual, environmental, emotional, or temporal. Anything that reminds the brain of a learned pattern. Clear explains that the human brain is a pattern recognition machine. It constantly scans for cues linked to pleasure or pain. Through repetition, cues become invisible guides of our lives, the unseen architecture shaping our actions. For example, the sight of a smartphone becomes a cue for checking notifications. The sound of a bell for students becomes a cue for leaving class. Most habits operate below consciousness. We act not from decision, but from design. Therefore, the first principle of habit change is awareness. When one learns to see the cues guiding behavior, one begins to regain control over automatic living. James Clear calls this recognition the habits scorecard, an inner awakening to what has always been hidden. Law 2: make it attractive. Craving. Every habit exists because it serves a psychological craving. Without desire, no behavior repeats. However, cravings are not for the habit itself, but for the state change it promises. One does not crave a cigarette, but the relief it brings, not the food, but the comfort it gives, not the workout, but the feeling of vitality afterward. Cravings arise from the brain's dopamine system, which motivates behavior by anticipating rewards. Interestingly, dopamine spikes not when we receive a reward, but when we expect it. Thus, anticipation drives action more than fulfillment. Clear draws a profound insight here. Habits are not logical, they are emotional. To change them, one must change what the mind finds attractive. He calls this process reprogramming the brain's expectation of pleasure. If the association between action and reward changes, the habit changes naturally. Hence, every habit, good or bad, is built on emotional energy. Law 3, make it easy. Response: desire alone is not enough. The habit must be effortless to execute. Human behavior always follows the law of least effort, the path that requires the smallest amount of energy. Therefore, habits thrive when they are frictionless, when they require no mental debate or physical strain. Complexity kills consistency, simplicity breeds strength. James Clear illustrates that habits are less about motivation and more about environmental design, the arrangement of life so that the desired behavior becomes the default behavior. While this is often explained practically, its deeper idea is philosophical. The shape of your behavior is sculpted by the invisible geometry of your surroundings. Even the willpower of a person is finite. Therefore, the wise do not rely on it. They design circumstances that support their ideals. This principle reflects a larger truth. Freedom is not in resistance but in alignment. To make a behavior easy is to align with the natural flow of the mind. Law 4, make it satisfying. Reward. The final stage of habit formation is reward, the emotional confirmation that closes a feedback loop. If a behavior is satisfying, the brain marks it as valuable and repeats it. If it is unsatisfying, it fades from memory. This truth rests upon a timeless principle of psychology, the law of reinforcement. Whatever is rewarded is repeated, whatever is punished is avoided. However, there is a deeper insight. Humans live in tension between instant gratification and long term reward. Good habits often feel painful now, but rewarding later. Bad habits feel good now, but painful later. Therefore, the mind struggles to act for future benefit. Clear's wisdom lies in bridging this psychological gap, showing that satisfaction must be felt in the present moment to sustain a habit. When immediate joy and long term value merge, a habit becomes permanent. Thus, the final law reveals the secret of internal harmony, the alignment of short term pleasure with long term purpose, the deeper framework, the four stages as a feedback loop. These four stages, cue, craving, response, reward, form an endless feedback cycle that governs all behavior. The cue triggers a craving, the craving motivates a response, the response delivers a reward, the reward reinforces the cue. Over time, the loop becomes automatic. This is the mechanical rhythm of habit, the clockwork of human conduct. Yet James Clear reveals something profound. This cycle can serve either slavery or freedom. If controlled by ignorance, it chains the mind. If understood consciously, it becomes a tool of evolution. Thus, mastering habits is not just self improvement, it is self liberation. Identity, the center of all change. Among all ideas in atomic habits, this is the most philosophical. True behavior change is identity change. Most people focus on outcomes. I want to lose weight or processes, I will exercise, but these remain eternal. Real transformation begins when one says, I'm a healthy person. When habits arise from identity, they become natural expressions of being, not forced behaviors. Every action, Clear explains, is a vote for the type of person you believe yourself to be. Thus, repeated habits build identity, and identity sustains habits. This reveals a spiritual truth. We become what we repeatedly do. Our smallest acts express our deepest self concept. Identity based change therefore moves from the inside out. First one believes, then one behaves, finally one becomes. In this Clear's vision transcends psychology. It touches the realm of philosophy and consciousness, the plateau of latent potential. Another significant idea is the plateau of latent potential, the silent period where effort shows no visible result. In the beginning, habits often seem useless, change feels invisible, but beneath the surface, progress is accumulating like ice thickening in winter. Then one day, the temperature rises just enough, and the ice cracks, not because of that moment, but because of all moments before it. Clear uses this to illustrate the power of persistence and patience. Change is not linear, it is exponential. What seems stagnant is often preparation for transformation. Thus, the wise do not give up during the valley of invisibility. They understand that unseen growth is still growth. The role of environment and culture. James Clear expands his philosophy from the individual to the collective. He shows how environment and social norms act as silent sculptors of habit. Humans, he explains, are herd creatures. They imitate the habits of the tribe. What is praised, they repeat. What is ridiculed, they avoid. Therefore, belonging and approval shape behavior more powerfully than intention. This reflects a profound truth about human nature. We change not in isolation but in relationship. Our surroundings are mirrors of our future selves. The meaning of mastery, according to Clear, is not perfection but endless refinement. Every repetition of a habit is a chance to reinforce identity, polish execution, and deepen control. Mastery is therefore not an event, but a direction, a continual ascent toward higher order. He writes, you do not need to be perfect, just better than before. Thus, the goal of atomic habits is not flawlessness, but progress without friction. Evolution through gentle repetition. The book's philosophical essence at its heart, Atomic Habits, teaches that greatness is a slow accumulation of tiny correctnesses. Transformation is less about intensity and more about continuity. Freedom arises not from control but from consistency. The smallest change in behavior, when aligned with the identity, becomes the seed of destiny. In essence, it is a book not about habits but about the laws of becoming, how structure shapes the spirit, and how daily repetition sculpts the soul. Final insight, the infinite game of improvement. James Clear closes his vision with humility. There is no finish line. Self improvement is not a race, but a rhythm, a lifelong dance between effort and ease. The aim is not perfection, but evolution, not achievement, but awareness. He writes, the task is never about doing one thing once, it's about doing the right thing again and again. In this, the book transcends self help and becomes a meditation on growth itself. The message is timeless, that small, consistent acts, guided by consciousness, can awaken greatness from the ordinary.